because these structures and beliefs and principles that lead to more demagogic civilizations and institutions are all about the game of power and control and dominance. They do not care truly what befalls their constituents. It's all a game of stacking hierarchy and beliefs of a more despotic and ordered structure that ultimately is not about protecting anyone or anything. It rides the coattails of any ideal that is going to uplift it more into a position of authority and control and dominion over others. It only has a reverence for things that bring about the destruction of what it deems an enemy and an adversary to it. And in that essence, it will effectively attempt to co opt and pull and draw any and all ideological differences and backgrounds that do not stand against it, that it can see as potentially utilizable and therefore corruptible into its gravitas. And it will ride and utilize those ideals in order to reach its goals. These demagogic structures do not have a real order to them. They don't possess a methodology of their own. They exist like an infection of cordyceps. They simply spread through whatever pathway is available to them. And over time, they destroy and they corrupt and erode and use up that pathway until it is no longer necessary or able to be puppeteered. And then they leave it to decay, oftentimes utilizing it or even turning against it and using it as a kind of controlled demolition through which it can do the equivalent of damage control. These demagogic ideologies that exist, that attempt to pull and draw influenceable minds into their structure, do so for the sake of utilizing you to keep you in a confined state of entrapment and what can equate to Stockholm syndrome by poisoning your mind, by manipulating your mind, by pointing a finger at its adversaries and aligning you with their ideological viewpoints. They weaponize you, they abuse you, and they will and can turn their backs on you. Because effectively, it's a parasitic relation that they are seeking out of any structure and order. Their goal is to corrupt the existing structure and then control what they can, even if it comes at what they deem a necessity of destroying the very structure to meet and justify the ends that they wish to achieve, and building what they can out of the rubble and ashes and the remnants of that. And ultimately, what they do is sacrifice anyone and everyone from all polarities, including their own, that can potentially stand in the way of getting what they want. Because theirs is not to bring and uplift the promises that they instill within you, ideals of a perfect world and civilization or utopic ideals. These things are illusions. They are mechanisms in order to control your mind and implant further ideals that you are working towards something, when in reality, these forces are conspiring to utilize you to bring about the downfall of whoever and whatever they deem an adversary for their grab of power. They don't aspire to anything but the destruction of anything and everything that stands in their way from grabbing power and imposing their will on others, imposing their ideals into others, and deconstructing everything that stands in the path of that. Because ultimately, what they truly believe in is revenge and retribution. And even these ideals are not their own. It is a hijacked, conscious manifestation of pain and hatred and condemnation. One that lurks within the minds of people no different than you who were once influenced by the very same relation to a world that is by its nature imperfect. They slip through the cracks of the systems meant to uplift and uphold them, went through suffering, but they succumbed and fell to a lower nature that is malleable and influenceable by dark intentions. Forces that are more animalistic and vengeful. And they try to uplift this and give it a veil and veneer of piety and morality, where ultimately that structure is non-existent. Demonstrating it through deeds and actions and the pathologies that attempts to masquerade as order ultimately possess no morality, no conscience. It is a systemic ideology that brings with it death and suffering and punishment to anyone and anything that does not align with its seeking for power and control and domination and dominion. Do not fall for these deceptions and these illusions. It does not take aligning yourself with one side or another. It does not take aligning yourself with any kind of ideological framework. It takes seeing through and making yourself aware of just what is being propagated to you. The ideas bringing and sowing this feeling of division, this circumstance of hatred and condemnation for your fellow human beings, this circumstance of seeing the world as something despotic and destitute. These are the key markers of deception and illusion that are being utilized by people with ill intentions for you and others around them. Human beings, by their nature, want to nurture and uplift one another. And we are not perfect, but by our nature, we attempt to work together to uplift and nurture one another. Now, there's many different ways and shapes and forms that in this modern era, due to the circumstances of ideological difference and the sowing of division, we are not able and capable to fully see and understand. But it is not these differences that ultimately divide us. It is these differences that make us unique and present with them a unique opportunity to walk and exemplify that we can and all are capable of cooperating and nurturing and creating a more nurturing world, one that seeks to benefit and uplift one another. As all the world teachers and different figures throughout history and beliefs have attempted and aspired to show humanity. We have more in common than we do that divide us, though our differences may simply be rooted in ideals. We, by our nature, try to seek and live a life that is of a benefit to ourselves and others around us, that is ultimately uplifting to others around us. The dark blemishes and spots that exist in history that others would want to wipe and erase or get rid of, what they don't understand are those very things that happen, while not justifiable, act as marker points to learn from. Lessons that should not be forgotten or erased, so that we know what pitfalls to avoid and what to grow from, so that we avoid the same mistakes. Do not let the flood of these ideological positions that sow division and discourse try to schism and drag your mind to more entropic and destructive ideals. They wish to root you in this attachment to these more self-destructive forces so that you are influenceable, malleable. They are preying and playing upon your psychology and your emotions and attempting to distort your relation to the world and drag and pull you into internal conflicts that ultimately weaponize you. Go back to your heart. Have compassion for yourself and see and realize that it's not a lie, but it's a truth that you walk in through your deeds and your actions. Do not let people corrupt that principle within you, that principle of compassion for yourself and for others. Walking in that compassion, being guided by that compassion, is going to show you there is more good than there is evil in the world. It takes you being a conduit to bring that good into the world. Do not let people convince you of the gravity of evils and demagoguery. These people are sowing these ideals and beliefs into you to control you, to manipulate you, and to distort the reality of who you are and what you are. They're playing and preying upon your thoughts and emotions, making promises that they will never keep. They are attempting to use you as a tool and a weapon and an instrument of their will. See through the cracks in their armor. Feel and see what they are stoking within you. And realize that is not what you are. Realize the deception. See what they sow. And know them by their deeds and their actions.